Hello friends, this is Q again. I'm sitting in the beautiful Comset State Park in Huntington, New York. And it's a beautiful day. I spent a little quality time with my guitar, and I thought this was a perfect setting to be able to give you what I promised, and that was a short video on how to develop your own psychic and intuitive sense. Now, this video is going to be about you, and I warn you, it is going to go beyond the usual 5-minute limit that I like to have on my videos. But I hope those who are interested in really exploring their own intuitive abilities and psychic abilities will feel that it's time well spent. You know, there are many books that are out there about developing your own abilities, and they are all good and well. But I haven't seen too much written or videos about actually developing your own skills from the point of view of somebody who has been doing this, as I've been a professional psychic for decades, probably 25 to 30 years. So I'm in a position to be able to explain to you not only how to do it, but what it should feel like when you are actually getting psychic information as opposed to just figments of your imagination. It has long been my belief that everyone has the ability to get psychic impressions or intuitive impressions. Personally, I don't particularly care for the word psychic. It has too much baggage. People think about bandana-headed gypsies, you know, who might be out to, or bogus psychics and cold readers who are out to just get your money. And unfortunately, there are many of those people in the business. But there still are a few of us who are actually providing our natural abilities, genuine abilities to folks like you. And I've had the privilege of doing that for a very long time. So I'm in a position to be able to give you at least some information to get you started. So what I have observed is that people imagine incorrectly or erroneously that psychic impressions are some weird thing that takes over your mind and suddenly you are in some sort of trance. But in actual fact, people are really getting psychic impressions all the time, every day. In fact, they're so common that people often dismiss them. And they will say, oh no, I have no psychic abilities at all. What's happening is they're getting these impressions and they are dismissing them as quote unquote just my imagination. A phrase which is really one of my pet peeves, because so much about our intuitive abilities as human beings and even magical abilities as human beings are dismissed and discarded as just my imagination, when in fact that is the imagination is one of your primary tools in getting psychic information that is accurate and reliable. So the first thing I should tell you is the first step towards becoming aware of psychic impulses is just that, to become aware of them. Watch your train of thought in the course of a day. Most people are really not conscious. They're conscious of thinking, but they're not conscious of the train of thought throughout the day. And when you get an idea or an impression or a thought pops seemingly out of nowhere into your head, that doesn't make sense. And often I find that that is the problem. People who are going to judge that stream of thought by logic are going to dismiss a lot of the psychic impulses that they get, because logic is a wonderful thing. My father was very, very big on logic. But the problem with logic is that logic is dependent on the facts that you have at the moment. If you're going to do psychic impressions, or you're going to get psychic impressions or do psychic readings, those readings are not based on logic. They're not based on facts you have at the moment. In my own practice, when I do readings for people, and they remember that they're paying They're paying a good dollar to come to somebody who can tell them something they don't know, or something that I could not possibly know through logical, rational means. And I can deliver that to them. Why? Because I don't prejudge these impressions using logic. Logic is limited. It's a wonderful, wonderful tool. Don't get me wrong. I have nothing bad to say about logic. My only point is that it is limited. It's limited because it is based on the facts that are known. But if there are facts that are unknown, the conclusions that you come to using the logical method may be completely wrong. And that's the reason why people who do cold reading are really not doing good psychic readings. Their readings, their predictions, their observations are off, because they are just basing their readings on what they can see. You know, how the person is dressed, if they're wearing any jewelry, if they were able to gather any information from conversation. And that's how cold readers work. They go based on logical suppositions or assumptions based on knowledge that they can gather. And very often these people are very good at asking you questions that appear to be just casual conversation, but they're drawing conclusions based on that. And those are not by any means real psychic readings and psychic impressions. These people are essentially thieves that are playing on the naivete of the people that they are working with. So at any event, this is one of the reasons that when I do psychic readings for people, and they're often on the telephone, not always, but they're often on the telephone. I can't even see the person. I don't know what they look like. I don't know what their age is. I don't know what they're wearing. I can't see any surroundings that they, in the environment, that would give me any information. But I don't ask people questions. I don't engage them in conversation. I just go based simply on what spirit gives me and the psychic impressions that I have learned to develop over the years. So how are you going to do that? What's in this for you? What's in this for you is you need to basically begin, first of all, becoming aware of the stream of thought, the things that you think about in the course of the day. Much of what you think about in the course of the day will be inspired by events that are happening around you. Things that happen will suggest something to you, and you'll have a stream of thought which is completely organic. Really, it has no connection with psychic impulses. But you will get impulses and impressions, and each person is an individual, so those impulses may be some psychic impressions come as images, like pictures, or impressions. You might get feelings that don't seem to make any sense. They come out of left field completely. Or you may be doing your laundry, and suddenly you think about your sister. Your sister pops into mind, or something else will just occur to you, and there doesn't seem to be any logical connection. Those are the kinds of things you want to pay attention to. To the extent that you can confirm whether anything actually is going on with your sister, or with whatever it is that you got an impression about, to that extent, that's good. So the first step is becoming more aware of your thought stream. For me, my psychic impressions have always come in a way of pictures, images, and impressions. I know that some psychics, they hear voices, or they see a guardian spirit near them, and that person talks to them and tells them things. I never had that. I never experienced that. To me, spirit has always spoken to me in terms of images and impressions. So I'm best able to counsel you in those areas. But once you become aware of those things, the logical question, and the thing that most of my students tell me about, is they say, well, sure, I get an impression, but to me it just feels like my imagination. And I find, folks, that is one of your biggest obstacles. That when you get an impression, you're going to automatically assume that it is simply an impression, that it is simply a figment of your imagination. So it's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any particular information for you. But what will happen, and what you need to be able to do, is as time goes on, you need to be able to do two things. Number one, begin to distinguish the difference between the way an image feels that's just coming strictly from your head, and an image that is coming from somewhere else and has some information about the person or the thing that you are thinking about. I will admit, that's something that takes some practice. Um, Even after doing readings for thousands and thousands of people, once in a while, doesn't happen often, hardly anymore, but once in a while, a purely imaginary impression will sneak through. And the reason I know that it's purely an imaginary impression is because it won't be accurate in some way. Fortunately, that hardly ever happens to me anymore. But for someone starting out, you're going to have to be able to tell the difference. Don't think of it as a fail. If you ask yourself a question, or if you sit there and try to divine something, or ask yourself for science, or ask spirit for some sort of impression about something that is a psychic impression, uh, you will have many misses in the beginning. You need to not see that as a failure, personal failure. Like I told you before, I've been in this business a very long time. I've met a great many people, and I am completely convinced that virtually every normal human being gets psychic impressions all day long, and some more than others. Of course, like anything else, they say everyone can learn to sing or play the guitar, for example. That doesn't mean you're going to be a world famous guitar player or singer. No, every creature, every human being has a unique set of talents, and your talents may be stronger in one area than another area. So when I say that everyone has psychic ability, I mean it. You can develop it. It can be very valuable to you. You can get all kinds of information, all kinds of impressions from things, situations, circumstances, people that could be valuable to you. But that doesn't mean that you're going to have the gift strong enough to be able to go out and just set up your table and do readings for thousands of people. No, perhaps your God-given gifts are stronger in other areas. But be that as it may, if you have an interest and you're watching this video, and you're listening to me ramble on here, if you have an interest in developing these skills, chances are you have an above average ability, and there's just something inside of you that is moving you to explore that ability. So there's that. So again, watching the stream of thought, whenever possible, corroborating the information that you get. For example, in my work, I'm usually there reading someone else. If I'm reading someone else and I tell them something, sometimes they will come back right away and they will confirm that yes, this is true. Or if you read something about a family member and you end up talking to them a little sometime later, sometimes they can confirm that what you saw was true. And there's many, many other occasions and opportunities for you to confirm your impressions. So I'm going to suggest that you also do that. Confirm your impressions. Remember, and I'm going to repeat this again and again until it really sinks into your head, I believe that this is a natural ability, and I believe that it's a natural ability that is happening all the time for you. And so if only you pay attention, it's not something weird or strange you have to do to put yourself into a trance state. I mean, into a trance state. Some psychics do that, yes. But I have found that it has not been necessary in my case. And I know a great many legitimate, genuine psychics. When you're a psychic, you have a tendency to get to know other ones. And it's easy to tell right away who is legitimate and genuine and who is not. So I've talked to many, many psychics. They don't go into a trance. In fact, I can do a psychic reading. I can be on a train, on a bus, on a plane. There can be all kinds of distractions, bands, loud noises, dogs barking, music in the background. It won't make any difference, because once you learn to kind of tune into that stream of impressions or images, or if you hear voices, your voices, you will be able to access those impressions under almost any circumstances. And you'll be able to turn it on and off. Contrary to popular opinion, psychics are not all-knowing, they're not omniscient, and they don't walk around all the time in the psychic mode. It just doesn't happen. That's a fallacy. So when people make jokes about, oh, you know, if you trip over something, for example, and they make jokes about, I guess you didn't see that coming. It really is an ignorant comment, because these psychic impressions are something that you usually have to tune into consciously. Although, having said that, it is also true that you can get spontaneous impressions. It happens all the time, and the more you develop your abilities, the more that will happen. So then we've covered, let's just recap a little bit. In order to help develop your own psychic abilities, you have to, number one, be aware that getting psychic impressions and psychic information is literally a natural process. It doesn't mean you're weird. It doesn't mean you have to be outrageously gifted. I believe, and I believe I have good reason to have come to the conclusion that this is a natural process that happens all the time, but people 99.5 out of 100 times will dismiss it as just your imagination. They won't think anything of it. They may even feel embarrassed sometimes that they had this silly thought that came out of nowhere. Okay, so number one is be aware that it is a natural faculty. Number two, begin to watch the stream of thought that and impressions, not just thoughts, not just specific thoughts, but also impressions. You may be going along and you feel happy, and all of a sudden you feel depressed, or you feel depressed and you think of your mother. You feel depressed and you think of this, or some of your best friend, you know, comes into mind. Okay, these are very often psychic impressions that you're getting spontaneously, even without focusing on them. And if you pay attention to that, just make a mental note of it, and if possible, find a way to corroborate with that, whether that was accurate or not. It could be that you call that person, or in some other way you try to corroborate it. Many times you won't be able to, but I can tell you from personal experience, as time goes on, if you persist in paying attention to these senses, they will not only get stronger, but you will notice them more, and all the information they've been trying to feed you this whole time. And that will help them to get your ability to be a little bit more sensitive to subtle impressions. So for now, that's what I'm going to give you in terms of exploring your own impressions. Now, I would encourage you, please, to post any questions that you may have. You can also contact me privately as well. I won't charge you for this information, or for that these back and forth with emails and what have you. On the YouTube channel, you have an opportunity to be able to consult with me to a certain degree, and I'm glad to be able to help you if I can. It is a blessing to be able to develop these abilities, to help people in a genuine way, to be able to give them information they would not normally have, to help them in many respects that if I went into all of them, this video would be an hour long, and I don't want to do that. So in any event, this was a spontaneous video. I know it's a little jumbled maybe and a little bit rambling, but I can tell you that it's all legitimate, and if you pay attention to some of the things that we talked about today, you will be able to really improve your own sensitivity. And I think that when you do, you will see the value in it as time goes on. Again, don't be surprised to have another video. I'm pretty sure I didn't cover everything. This is, as I said before, a spontaneous video. It is done out in the middle of a park during a walk, and I hope it's of value to you. I hope you're all having an awesome day. And as usual, this is Q signing off, wishing you health, wealth, and happiness.